Welcome class to week 5 of Methods of Biblical Change. We are officially over the hump, halfway done. As always, we're teaching the sufficiency of Scripture, progressive sanctification, and how the Bible teaches us how to grow and change through short videos that we make every week to review last week's homework, go over this week's assignments, and take a sneak peek at next week's. There's reading every week in your notes and textbooks, other resources, primarily from ACBC certified teachers and authors, and occasionally videos from Faith Baptist Palm Bay Training Center, the one that I had been a part of. And every week you'll have a journal and a discussion board to complete, and quizzes every single week, and a short weekly written assignment. So, the grading policy has not changed. Each of the journal readings are worth 25 points, as are the discussion boards and the short written papers. The quizzes are worth twice that. So every week there's a possibility of 125 points times 8 weeks is 1,000 points. And it is all very evenly distributed with reading, quizzes, discussion, and paper each week. This week's assignments are for watching and for reading are to read part 4 of J. Adams' book, chapters 16 through 20, which is step 3, corrections. I'm sorry, I'm looking at last week, week 4, the one you just completed. So this was all about correction. Then also to read the introduction of the book I Want to Change, short book by Jim Neuheiser. Chapter 1 is unbiblical methods that lead to failure, those that want to change but keep not changing. And then read the definition of empathy from Wikipedia, and the article from John Piper called Present and Powerful Love. The short written paper was Talk to Me, Don't Text Me, also by Jim Neuheiser, the author of this book, discussing if you're going to be confronting someone, is it better to do it in person or in a well-documented written form? There were journals and discussion boards and quiz number 4. Last week's discussion board was for you to write a half-page to one-page essay about a time when you remember someone corrected you in a biblical way, and I really enjoyed all of your contributions. There was great humility that each of you showed from a time in the past, and how God provided someone that loved you enough to confront you. And even if you didn't respond well at the time, you now look back on that as something that was very holy and a pivot point in your life. And that was great, seeing you all interact on that. The paper number 4, Talk to Me, Don't Text Me. Based on the paper, write a 1 to 2 page short paper indicating whether you agree or disagree with Jim's conclusion that confronting someone face to face is better. But I also wanted you to just look at the pros and cons of both. And I enjoyed reading the papers that you had. They were insightful. They recognized the fact that sometimes in writing is the only choice. And there are advantages to that as well. So I hope you learned a good bit from that, and will use it in the future to lean towards confronting people that you love, that God's put in your life to play that role, that you prepare for that well and do it face to face with love and humility. For there but for the grace of God go I, as you are confronting someone about some sin in their life. So that brings us to this week, week number 5, Disciplined Training in Righteousness is the title. Part 5 of the book, How Do People Change, is titled exactly that. It's the 4th and final step that J. Adams goes over, Disciplined Training in Righteousness. So read all 5 of those chapters, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And then read chapter 2 in Jim Neuheiser's How to Change, Help I Want to Change book, and it's titled The Gospel is the Key to Change, and that should be the emphasis, and it's so easy to be tempted away from that when we're trying to help people solve problems. I know, I'm an engineer, I am wired to fix things for people, But as a biblical counselor, my job is to point them to Christ, and He will do that heart change for them. And so that's the center of every counseling session. Then we are introducing this week, in week 5, a gospel primer written by Milton Vincent. Milton is an ACBC certified biblical counselor, and he found a lot of his counselors needed to focus on the gospel. And so this is very often, I just gave this to one of my counselees when we had dinner together on Saturday. I use it frequently, especially after several weeks of meeting, to help them focus on the things that they need to focus on about the Scripture. This book is broken into 3 major pieces. The first is the one that you'll be reading this week, and it is titled Reasons to Rehearse the Gospel Daily. And then the second section is the prose version. It's 41 verses, reads like a chapter in the Bible, that summarizes the entire gospel. It's very well footnoted, so if you're doubting something he says in this 12-word sentence, he's got 2 scripture references, often one from the Old, one from the New, that make the point that he is making, so you can check it easily against Scripture. And then not only does he have the prose version, but he has a poetry version. So he has a rhyming iambic pentameter poem that does the same thing, that's suitable for memorizing. And that's in the 3rd section that you'll read in a couple of weeks. So great book, a gospel primer, very useful for helping people change by focusing on the gospel. Fourth, there is a wonderful practical application audio presentation by Randy Patton. He was the executive director of ACBC 2 directors ago, and prior to Heath Lambert, and he was my certification supervisor, so he supervised my 50 hours, and he is a stickler for giving good, solid homework. So take good notes on this and apply it in your counseling to coming up with very effective, meaningful, specific, measurable, realistic homework that people can do that emphasizes the gospel. So the title of his presentation is Homework That Maximizes Change. So listen to that. Be sure to download the outline notes so that you can print that out or pull it up on your computer, and you can have most of the outline already there, so you can focus on the meat of the presentation when you're taking notes. Then your short written paper, we'll talk about it in a minute, is titled What is Righteousness and Is It Even Possible? Based on one of the chapters from J. Adams' book. Complete your journal, the discussion board, and quiz number 4. Now, let's see, the discussion board will have you listening to a podcast from Rick Thomas, another ACBC fellow, titled If You're Serious About Change, Do These Things. There is a link to it. There's also a copy of it in Canvas. In a 1/2 to 1-page essay, write what you believe are the top 3 out of the 9 presented most important things that a Christian who wants to change should do. Post your paper to the class by Thursday the 18th, and that's not right. Today is Monday the 17th, so that'll be Thursday the 20th, and respond to a classmate by the 22nd. That due date should be the 22nd. I'll fix this before I post it. There, I got the due date right on the discussion board. On the paper number 5. So paper number 5, based on your reading of chapter 20 in particular, and the whole section, Discipline, Training, and Righteousness of J. Adams' book, and how to help people change, write a 1 to 2-page short paper defining righteousness and explaining how it is possible or how it is not possible. And use Scripture to make your case, and be sure, as always, to follow the rubric. Next week, week 6, this will be the week that we read chapter 3, Your Responsibility Towards Change, in the book by Jim Neuheiser. Help, I Want to Change. Read part 2 of the Gospel Primer, which will be the narrative, the prose version of the Gospel by Milton Vincent. And then read the article, Your Problem Is a Biblical Approach to Confrontation. And read another article by John MacArthur, Does God Love Whom He Does Not Save? So there's a short written paper titled Comparing Confronting and Being Confronted. Complete your journal, your discussion board, and quiz number 6. After reading the introduction and part 1 of Reasons to Rehearse the Gospel Daily in the book Milton Vincent, which was, you read that in week 5 actually, but we're going to do a discussion board on it in week 6. Prioritize the top 3 of the 25 reasons to rehearse the gospel daily according to where you currently are in your walk with Christ. Elaborate on why these 3 rose to the top for you. And again, as always, you don't need to be overly explicit in your secret sinful life, but do be humble enough to share in general some of the things you struggle with, because as we struggle together, we strengthen each other. Post your paper by Thursday the 27th and a response by Saturday the 29th. This week 6 short paper will be on comparing, confronting, and being confronted. So I want you to think of a time when you were confronted with an issue by someone. It could be the one that you talked about in the discussion board in week 4, if you like. And also a time where you confronted someone else on an issue. What similarities do you see that happen to you as an individual when you're being confronted and when you're confronting someone? What differences do you see when you are receiving versus giving this? And if you had to confront that person again, what changes would you make? You may not have confronted in the best way possible, the most effective way. And finally, do you feel that you need to confront someone in your life right now? If so, how are you going to go about it? Paper should be 2 to 4 pages long, so this is one of the longer assignments. So, I wish you well, and as always, email or text me if you have any questions. God bless.